There we go.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everyone to our statewide ranked Rank the Vote Nebraska meeting. And I apologize, I was just a little bit tongue-tied there. We're just really so glad to have some people joining us tonight who are going to talk with us about some really good details and a program that we're using for our ranked poll tonight. And what I wanted to do is just welcome everyone and let you know that we do have a statewide meeting every first Thursday of the month at 8 p.m. And if you would like to join us, we are also very active in the meantime. We'd love anyone to come and help us with our volunteer efforts. Larry Bradley is a longtime member and advocate for ranked choice voting, and he will give us an introduction about ranked choice voting. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us here at this meeting of Rank the Vote Nebraska. You're participating in a meeting of a group of people who have concluded that we can only have more effective and efficient government if we change the ballot we use in our elections. That's because we believe ranked choice voting will discourage negative campaigning, allow voters to vote their conscience instead of having to choose between the lesser of two evils, put an end to the two-party stranglehold, and ensure elected officials represent the will of the voters by guaranteeing that every elected official will be a majority winner rather than a plurality winner. And we have just seen a clear example of that in this primary election that Nebraskans have just completed. In the race for the nomination on the Republican Party for governor, the nominee got led somewhat just a little shy of 34% of the vote, nowhere near 50% plus one or better. If we had been working with the rules that Iowa has, Iowa allows plurality winners, i.e. less than majority winners, but they have to get at least 35%, or the party is required to have a party convention and to get their nominee. If Nebraska had been working with those rules, the nomination process for the Republican Party for governor would not have been over on Tuesday night, that night. So we see that ranked choice voting is the path to political peace for all of us, and that's why we're so much of an advocate for us of it. I believe Roxanne is going to give you an example of how ranked choice voting works with our Rank It poll. So Roxanne, with that, I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome, thanks. Just a minute and I'll share my screen. Okay. So back in the day, we were using the Rank It polls, where now we've recently moved to the Ranked Vote polls. A little bit different platform. This one has more robust information that can accurately verify and identify how ranked choice voting would actually work in government. What's great about this is when you create your poll, this month we're doing our favorite summertime activities, but you can actually assign them to parties, you know, like community and nature. You know, you could be like Democrat, Republican. And then you can also do some nifty little things where you have pictures where it has more candidate information as well, or they could do little summaries as well. So with that, we had 16 votes, 5 rounds. And within the 5 rounds, you can clearly see it going back and forth. So we're going to go to round 2. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. Round 1, hiking and walking in nature, had 5. And we see nothing really changed except for down below at the last 2 here. But once we get to round 3, we lose garden and picnics and playing sports, where it ups the camping, going to vacations, and hiking or nature. But then we see going on vacations take the lead by +2. And then following that, it looks like we got a tie, actually.
And it looks like I must have broke the tie when I was voting just in here. So yes, the very rare ranked choice voting tie, which can only happen really at low vote counts like this and with an even number of votes. But going on vacations is the winner there.
Which I think everybody would agree, going on vacations, because a lot of people don't like hiking. So, but with the results, it also has really great explanations down at the bottom for what the rounds mean, how the votes are calculated, how they're exhausted, and then it also shows the percentages for each round as well, that people can definitely check out and see this. And with all of our ranked votes for each month, I have been putting them on the website as well, so people can refer back to different polls that we have done and continue learning. Okay.
That really is robust, Roxanne. What's the link to go to that product?
It's RankedVote.co.
.co, that's cool.
Yeah. And today we're actually going to hear from the founder of this product, Tad. He also has worked with Intuit, and he was also a co-founder of a product called Payable as well. And Rad, if you would like to, sorry, it's Tad. Can't speak. But
I'm Rad from time to time, but oh, this is awesome. If you have the deck, and happy to talk about it. And thanks for it, doing a demo of the app. It's always fascinating to get sort of a customer live, see how other people use your thing, because they always use it a little bit differently than you, intending to learn great things from that. But Roxanne, thank you for the introduction. And I'm Tad. I'm the founder of RankedVote. She mentioned I spent my career in Silicon Valley up until about a year ago. So after college, went out there, worked for about 15 years, and really got to see the power firsthand of a small group of people with some computers to have a really broad-based impact. So I worked at Intuit, worked on QuickBooks, which helps small businesses do accounting. I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I've got lots of passion for other entrepreneurs, and it was a great place to kind of learn the trade. Won't bore you with all the details, but did the venture funded thing, sold that startup, and now back in Wisconsin where I grew up, and have built and run and maintained RankedVote, where the idea behind it, if you go to the next slide, is really about popularizing pro-democracy reforms through software. Ranked choice voting is obviously the top one, hence it's called RankedVote, not proportional vote or something like that. But I saw an opportunity, thinking of, I've always had a passion for entrepreneurship, this, sort of exposure to technology, and also this sort of pragmatic, how can we make government work better for us? And eventually kind of came to ranked choice voting as really a pretty profound reform, especially when coupled with things like open primaries, like what's going on in Alaska, and could form a recipe for things to get a bit better. None of these things are a silver bullet, but wow, is this the potential to not only change who gets elected, but also their incentives for when they're governing in office. But one of the things I observed, there's a lot of great energy in the States. There's a lot of great energy, on sort of the legal and political side in DC. But where there's a gap is kind of this, in business, it gets called crossing the chasm, where you go from this set of kind of early adopters, people who are plugged in kind of like into this stuff, to the more mainstream population. And that's kind of the place where ranked choice voting is right now. And the role that RankedVote tries to play is in helping to make it more mainstream. So if you guys have ever used products like SurveyMonkey or Doodle, and for whatever reason, nothing's ever very seriously named in the world of technology, but these are businesses that not only make millions of dollars, more importantly, are used by millions of people every day, and they use it to make simple decisions, big decisions. And the idea of RankedVote is really like, what if SurveyMonkey, only did ranked choice voting, and people, when they are making decisions, whether it's student council or businesses prioritizing work to do, or cities like New York getting their voters ready for a new type of election, there would be an easy way to create those polls, those surveys, those elections online in a way that gives people a really positive first experience with it, and also automatically educates them. Because you guys are doing great work going around Nebraska. You're right there with people. You're talking them through it. Here's how the eliminations work. Here's what an exhausted vote means. This is what it could mean for Nebraska. But you can't always be right there in the room with them. And so what RankedVote tries to do makes it really easy for them to vote. The ballot, as you saw, is actually a very accurate simulation of the ballot that is used in Maine, New York City, and Alaska. The only place that's Minneapolis has a slightly different ballot. But anyway, they're practicing basically on the real thing, whether they're on a computer, whether they're on their phone. And that sort of kind of tech mindset is what I've tried to bring to the table through RankedVote. And so if you kind of thumb another slide into the future, 3 great ways and one more. I was going to do a demo where we all do this together, but Roxanne has already kind of covered it. So since starting RankedVote about 2 years ago, there have been 20,000 elections created on the platform. About 300,000 people have voted in some way, shape, or form on the platform. My goal is to write 10x all of those things so that it's now millions of people. But if, particularly in 2021, had the great opportunity to work with the mayor's office in New York City, and tens of thousands of voters used RankedVote to prepare for the Democratic mayoral primary that Eric Adams eventually won, replacing Bill de Blasio. They had QR codes at bus stops. Bill de Blasio ate a piece of pepperoni pizza as the result of one of those elections that was run on RankedVote and voted upon by New Yorkers. All sort of good fun. He had a bit of controversy in the press over speaking ill of a New York style pizza. I think he cut it with a fork and knife when you're supposed to fold it. Anyway, they had a lot of fun with it, got some, PR and TV visibility. And again, people got to practice voting before the actual election and had a better, more familiarity with it as a result. Same thing is going on right now with Alaska. So RankedVote is working directly with the Division of Elections on a number of campaigns that they're doing to educate the 500,000 voters across the gigantic state of Alaska, which now has to do this 2-3 months earlier than planned because of the passing of Representative Young, and which has caused a special election there, which would be the first election to use the new rules. And the team there is just doing fantastic stuff to get their people ready. So anyway, a lot of words, but wanted to share a little bit of this. RankedVote is a real thing. Working with the governments, municipalities that are sort of at the forefront of enacting these reforms. And it brings up the questions like, well, how do we get this to happen in more places like Nevada, like Missouri, like Nebraska? And what I wanted to convey to the group here today is just hey, here's kind of some different ways I've seen RankedVote used. And then one particular way, this kind of crossover category of that kind of gets at helping it to break into the mainstream. So anyway, as I said, 20,000 elections have been created on RankedVote over the past year and a half. One of the ways to use it is very much like Roxanne showed and like you guys have been doing with your monthly polls. And I call that sort of like exposure. This is showing people the basics. These are either first timers or people who might be doubting, oh, I heard about that, but it was too complex. I heard that didn't work somewhere and they got rid of it, right? This is a way of combating that and giving either doubters an experience that's simple or first timers an experience that is positive. And when you kind of can control the setting, you're there at a house party, it's a meeting of people that you can kind of walk them through it. It's a great use of the platform. Favorite summer activities, what's your favorite ice cream? You don't want to get bogged down. You almost want to make the the things that are being voted upon innocuous, so that you're kind of reducing the variables as much as possible, just to like the act of using this form to rank. And they have, hopefully a good experience. It goes right to that results page where that visualization and the plain text explanation, right? Like that can be your script. And you can, if they have questions about like, well, what does it mean when someone's eliminated? Oh, well, you can see that, hiking lost 2 votes and going on vacation gained 2. That's because the people who, their first choice was to hike and that's not going to work out. Now we're all going to go on a vacation instead. Sorry, did someone say something? Nope. So then the next category of kind of engage, this is where we see where people have become a bit more familiar, where they kind of step up the stakes. And so this is where, maybe when you're wearing not your Rank the Vote Nebraska hat, where you're going out into, cities and towns and advocating, maybe this is more of like in your day-to-day job and at work. We're seeing companies like Intuit, who I used to work at, had a person sign up today. They have a group of leaders that are trying to decide topics for an offsite. What are the top strategic priorities that our leadership feels should be the 3 points of discussion at the offsite? And so they've got a group of about 15 leaders voting on that, right? That's not anything to do with elections. That's not anything to do with politics, but it is exposing people to ranked choice voting. And they're a bit more engaged because there's actually there's something riding on the outcome. So anyway, business, in schools, a student council election, there's teachers using this to kind of, teach things in class. But when there is like the winner gets something, people get a bit more engaged. It's definitely a good next step once you have people sort of, okay, they've heard of the concept, they've maybe done it once or twice before. To get it to really stick, you got to put a little meat on it, and then it really kind of clicks for people. And then the last one, and then I can shut up and love to open things up for questions and kind of share stuff that'll be useful for you all in terms of implementation. But again, to this crossing the chasm sort of issue. This is really the idea of latching on to someone else's audience, community, distribution to amplify the ranked choice voting message. So as you saw in the Rank the Vote Nebraska election that we just did, there were 16 or 17 votes, many of them probably us on the call, right? It's really hard to get people to notice stuff online. I think Andrew Yang hopped in on an Elon Musk Twitter hullabaloo yesterday and started talking about ranked choice voting. And then someone else hopped on that and linked to RankedVote. It led to 5 votes coming in. So even think of the sort of megaphone in terms of online stuff that this was not much actually happened with it. But there are these opportunities out there. So to give a couple of examples, over the holidays, there was a video game company that used RankedVote to have its community vote on which character is going to be in a new version of our game. 64,000 people voted in that election. 64,000. Some people tried to duplicate. There were 75,000. There were 64,000 when I filtered the results through the deduplication feature. So somewhat half jokingly, but also half seriously, the 3 largest ranked choice voting elections in America last year were the New York City mayoral primary with about 800,000 people. Then Minneapolis City Council with a couple 100,000. And then a video game about hunting dinosaurs, what new characters are going to be, and 64,000 people voted. And that was just kind of like a light bulb moment for me, running an app platform, whoa, look at that scale. But as an advocate saying 64,000 people just got exposed to ranked choice voting, had a great time with it. And it was totally not about politics at all, but there was definitely the ranked choice voting message throughout. So where are more and more of those opportunities? One that I'm in, not necessarily negotiations, but city I live in, unbeknownst to, they didn't know me at all in any sort of personal capacity, our garbage crew is getting 2 new trash compactors. And I don't know if you knew of in Michigan, which Wisconsin and Michigan always fighting. Michigan got a lot of notoriety for the really, really kind of kick-ass names that they gave their snow removal trucks. And so they're looking to run a contest to have the community name the new trash compactors. And the guy wants to use ranked choice voting to do it. And so that's how he found out about ranked vote. I still need to get through the like city IT approvals, which if it's good enough for New York, it should be good enough anywhere. But anyway, that's an idea that like that can totally get sort of picked up in the local paper, you know, maybe even talked about on local TV, where again, the point here is that it's if we're going to cross over out of our sort of circular kind of reform heavy people who are really excited about this stuff and into the mainstream population, this is a great place to do it. So I bring up local newspaper, local magazines. If, you know, there's a Best of Omaha where like, you know, different restaurants are competing for best burger or best family friendly restaurant or best dive bar, whatever it is, like every city basically has one of those, and the winners get to put a little sticker up in their window. Those are the sort of things that could be done with ranked choice voting, could be done with Ranked Vote, the platform. Best of Omaha, exactly. Did I say Idaho? Sorry. Anyway, so that's really the spiel. It is so cool that you guys are using this to help teach Nebraskans. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have about how things New York did, things that Alaska is doing, how people are using this inside of companies, how people are using this in schools, and just different ways to get more people, more reps, and more exposure with ranked choice voting, because we know like the hard part is just getting them to listen. Then once you get them to try, it's like, oh, okay, this is pretty easy. But it's getting them to that point. We just need to get them more exposure, more reps. And so that's what we're trying to do.
Roxanne, are you setting one up there for the best burger? Or is that what's going on there?
Yeah, that's part of his presentation.
Oh, I don't know if you still want to do that or not. But
I think we can just kind of talk about it. It just links to the rankedvote.co website /elections. So, you know, you can just kind of have it up on a screen. And then if you click demo up in the top navigation, you know, so here's an example of what this looks like embedded into a website. Imagine it is, you know, the Omaha, it's Herald, you know, like embedded right there into their website. And instead of the Wendy's Baconator, you know, it's something far more local and specific to the city.
Like Runza, yeah, that's ours.
Definitely Runza.
Yeah.
Thinkers.
This is also a good one too.
Yeah. Tad, you mentioned something early.
I had to put Culver's in there. There has to be like a little nudge. It can't be too completely general.
looks like Larry had a question or a comment.
Like you mentioned earlier, and I'd like you to expound on that for our listeners and people who may be watching this later on too, as far as that goes. You mentioned about that, I'm paraphrasing you here, that one of the purposes of going to ranked choice voting is to change the incentive for elected officials once they're elected to govern. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so to be super clear, I'm probably mixing, you know, sort of two reforms that have been combined in Alaska, and because I'm working a lot with them, that's top of mind. Ranked choice voting itself doesn't necessarily change the incentives of the candidates once they're governing. I think what it does is that it changes the type of candidates who run, it changes the types of campaigns they run, and we end up with a representative that is more representative of the voters. The sort of open primary or top 4 or top 5 primary that was passed in Alaska is also being looked at in Missouri and Nevada this year. There's some legislation in Wisconsin as well. That one does a bit more to change the governing incentives. Again, because so many of our elected leaders, particularly in federal office, they're making decisions with an eye to the primary, and in a sort of locked party primary, they're always flanked to the extreme. Whereas in these open top 4, top 5 primaries, it removes that sort of extreme sort of incentive to, if you're a Republican catering to the right, if you're a Democrat catering to the left, and instead they're all kind of in the mix together.
Tad, question.
Yep.
So what state do you currently reside in?
I'm in Wisconsin.
Okay, so yeah, I lived in Wisconsin for 3 years. I live in Milwaukee, shout out Milwaukee. First state I ever heard where they elected their Supreme Court judges, and then it's like, of course, there's all these states out there that they elect their Supreme Court judges, and I thought, wow, what an incredibly bad idea. But anyways, I went through one election cycle, and it was interesting to say the least. But anyways, so here in Nebraska, we don't call them open primaries, we call them nonpartisan primaries, and our entire state legislature is nonpartisan, which is a great thing. The only problem I have with it is it's top 2, not top 4. You said Alaska has top 5?
Yeah, they passed top 4.
Top 4. Yeah, see, that would be my dream come true if we had like top 4. But yeah, we do have open primaries here. We just call them nonpartisan. And funniest thing, marketing is a funny thing, because some of my really conservative friends are totally against open primaries, but they're totally okay with nonpartisan primaries, even though they're the same exact thing. Yeah. There is a question that was just fluff there, I guess, but there seems to be like a lot of focus on Alaska. I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, group, that we had somebody from Alaska who was here a month or 2 ago, was talking about like all the effort that's put into Alaska. Would you know like why there's like a huge focus on Alaska?
Yeah. So what happened there is really interesting. If you look at ranked choice voting, where it's getting passed across the country, you guys are pretty sort of civically minded, right? The Constitution doesn't speak up too much on elections, and so it is handled in the states. And some states allow things by ballot initiative. Some states allow things, passing through the legislature. And so ranked choice voting is kind of popping up in these different places in different ways based on the mechanisms that allow them to pass. Maine was the first, and sparked some, really was kind of at the vanguard, first state to kind of pass these things after numerous cities were using it for a while in the US. What's different about Alaska, so it was passed by ballot initiative in 2020, but it is the combination reform. So, what they previously had were, I believe, party primaries, and then, most votes wins plurality elections. And what passed by ballot initiative in 2020 was actually 3 reforms all around elections. So one aspect is a top 4 open or nonpartisan primary. It's a tough, the marketing is in there. So it's like people still have the party labels. It's just that it's not a primary, it's a primary where anyone can vote. You don't have to be a declared Democrat or declared Republican. So you have the open primary aspect. You have the ranked choice voting general for those top 4. So ranked choice voting is then used in the general election, typically in November, to select the winner there. The third piece has to do with dark money and transparency and where the funding of different groups is going for. But anyway, so Alaska passed that in 2020, and why there's so much attention on it is because it is the open primary plus RCV. So that's interesting about it. The other piece is that it's federal elections, right? So this is going to impact a Senate race this year, seat currently held by Lisa Murkowski, and is going to affect their congressperson. And so, it's not a city council, not to malign city councils, like this is going to influence the composition of the Senate and of the House of Representatives. So that's why it's getting all the attention. And there's also not another state that has a big thing going through. So like they've got this pretty cool, innovative reform that has a lot of potential, and it's kind of the only game in town right now. So that's why.
So was it that, there was a lot of work put into Alaska and then they finally got a bill through their legislature and then that's when the attention came? Because I feel
having gotten the chance to talk to some of the folks, and it's like, it's a big state with not a lot of people.
It was a ballot initiative, Tommy.
Yeah, but aren't our ballot initiatives, so we have 3 times the population and our ballot initiatives are like a fraction of the cost of Alaska. Isn't that right?
It's because we're a smaller state. You
Yeah.
don't have to fly. You don't have to go places where there's not roads. That
Yeah,
kind
but
of
it wasn't a huge group of people. There was some money coming in, but I mean, it was really like some folks read, if you've heard of Catherine Gale's The Politics Industry book, I mean, like the oversimplified story is that like they read the book, said like this could work here, and some lawyers with some background in Alaska politics like put it together and got it to happen. And the hope is that it serves as a blueprint for other states.
Sorry, what was the name of the book? I'm just gonna write that down.
The book, The Politics Industry by Catherine Gale and Michael Porter.
Okay, anybody else just take the floor because I could talk all night.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I saw some comments about the number of candidates. This is an interesting question of like, hey, there's this open primary, jungle primaries, sometimes used somewhat pejoratively. And Alaska ended up with 48 candidates. There were 51 and then 3 dropped out. So only 48. Unique sort of circumstances there. The open primaries, I think, do augur for more candidates. Typically we have uncontested primaries or just like 1 or 2 or 3 people. 48 is a bit much. Alaska is a unique case here. For this congressperson, Don Young has held the office for the last 50 years. So this is the first time that this seat has been open since well before I was born. And so there's lots of people kind of wanting to throw their hat in the ring. There's a new set of rules, so people don't necessarily know, like it's as good a time to try as any. And then there's, I think, almost zero, like you just need to say, I want to run. So there's almost like no barrier to getting on the initial primary ballot.
Do you feel like voters are going to be confused since this is such a unique, all these things happening at the same time and all, 48 candidates? Do you think that people, I'm just kind of curious what you're finding when you're talking to Alaskans. Are they understanding how this works, or is it becoming overwhelming because of all the kind of chaos with?
Yeah, to the ones I'm talking to, I would say it's probably a self-selected set where they're the ones seeking out a ranked choice voting kind of solution, and they sign up for RankedVote and they're like, oh, hey, I'm looking to use this in my fisherman's club, like literal example. I didn't mean that to sound like overly like the Alaskan folks that signed up as a fisherman's club. Anyway, and also working with the Division of Elections. So I would say the main thing is with the Division of Elections, they are doing a great job just because like the logistic difficulty, because you've got 500,000 people, 200,000 Anchorage, next largest is Juneau at like 60,000. I mean, it's just incredibly spread out. How do you get this message across? Many native languages spoken by large chunks of the population. And so they are doing a great job of their reaching out in every channel possible. So it's not only their social media and online stuff like RankedVote, but they are on TV, they are on the sides of buses, they are on radio, and they are getting the message out there for this primary. First step, it's like, hey, just select your favorite. Yeah, there's a big list, but just select your favorite. And then as get through that primary and into the special general, again, you had a deceased member, so you have to have the special election. They'll focus a bit more on the ranked choice voting. But yeah, it's different. Change is always hard, but it's also not rocket science. And so they're at least putting the effort in the right places. And a majority of Alaskans passed this, as a ballot initiative a couple of years ago. So there is some desire and want for it, and it seems like a lot of excitement for kind of Alaska to be not just at the frontier, but like at the vanguard.
Well, great. And I was just curious when you said you've been working with the Secretary of State in Alaska. We had some visiting after the tests we had.
In the room. Okay.
Hi, Mike,
Oh.
Melissa.
Sorry, Melissa. There you go.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. We had a committee hearing this last session for a bill that would have brought the option for ranked choice voting to municipalities. And, people could have, in different cities could have chosen to use this if it had passed. And so we visited after the hearing with someone from the Secretary of State office, and they seemed interested or available, to discuss things. And if there was any opportunity to try to do some trials or, kind of interim study type of things, does your organization, how does that work? Do you have a fee structure for different entities, like say if it's a government, like Nebraska, or for an organization that's trying to do education?
Yeah, so when it's been the government entities, so New York City and Alaska and Minneapolis have been the primary ones. Those were a little bit early on in RankedVote's journey, and so it involved some custom work, particularly around languages. RankedVote translates into over 20 languages, like that results page. It's not just like Google Translate what it would say. It was actually translated by native speakers of all those languages. But now the platform's pretty solid. And so it's really like you go to the website, there's a pricing page, they can pick it up. And the main thing is, for you guys who are, part of the advocacy program. So for advocacy groups, that are willing to kind of work, give feedback, do stuff like this, comp it for free. But, really it comes into people want to embed it on their website so that they're not throwing people over to RankedVote. They're keeping them on, the Alaskan, elections.alaska.gov. And so that's the premium at $60 a month. Pretty cheap when you think of what most governments get charged for things. But the way to think about RankedVote is as in that kind of context, is as an educational tool. This is for, that sort of, expose and engage. Like this is for getting people some reps. This is for introducing them to the ballot in a way that even though it's on their phone, it's a fair representation of what they would actually see on a paper ballot. It's just about exposing them to the concept. If they want to use it internally to the, Nebraskan government as well for strategic prioritization and decision-making, like it can be used for that as well. But just as sort of like a demonstration and educational tool, it works great.
Thank you.
Yeah, to give you a specific example, so Alaska, to get people ready for both the sort of top 4 vote for one primary, followed by a ranked choice voting general election of those 4 that win, they ran an art contest with kids across the state. And there are 5 different regions in Alaska. And in each of those regions, kids submitted drawings of an I voted sticker. So, when you vote and you get the I voted, sticker, and like, you shouldn't feel that like geeked out about it, but you do. And so for each of those regions, thousands of people voted for which one was the favorite. And there was only one set of parents that ran this like really hardcore get out the vote campaign across social media. It's like, vote for our Keeley. She ended up winning. They did a great job. Get out the vote works. But so thousands of people in Alaska got to experience the primary, then to see the top 4, and then to vote on those using the ranked choice voting ballot. And then they are gonna, I believe the plan is in the mail-in ballots that they all received for this election, that's the kids drawing for that region is the sticker that they get. So it's a great example of putting a little bit of stakes into it. Like no one's getting hurt over the result of that election, but there was more to it than just favorite fruit, and was just a really great positive thing, but also got thousands of people to realistically simulate what they are going to be doing in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
that's a really good example. We could definitely like partner with the Best of Omaha team, see if they would be interested in doing something like this.
That could be something to suggest.
Yeah, for sure. Well, even the World Herald had, I would remember this well because my favorite one, they had a contest for who had the best French toast in Omaha. And Louis M's Burgerlust won.
Or like the zoo.
The best in Omaha.
Yeah. The zoo likes to hold like social media posts on naming newly born animals.
Yeah.
You know, new
So like
elephants.
100% yes, all of them. Like those are all great opportunities for it. And what it does again on this crossing over is that it's like they've already got built-in distribution. It is hard to build any sort of brand. It is hard to create a new organization and get people to listen and to notice and care. And so by finding these, you know, you're sort of creating this win-win situation where it's like, hey, World Herald, right? Like you need an inexpensive way to shine a spotlight on local businesses, right? And, you know, Rank the Vote Nebraska is looking to promote this potential electoral reform. And then, you know, people get excited about voting for their favorites. And so it's like the World Herald gets engaged readers, engaged businesses, and we are sneakily but intentionally getting ranked choice voting out there.
So if we were going to prod somebody to use it and we wanted to use your software, would we just use a link or would we have to buy, you know, probably that second level one at least to promote it that way?
What, like, honestly, like I'm definitely a businessman, but I'm not looking to make a business on the backs of the reform movement. So you can see that's the idea behind the plans that are there. Like every single one of you could create your own RankedVote accounts and they're free and it's fully featured. And if you want to create multiple or you want to kind of use it at work, then do that pro plan, which is $20 a month or $15 a month if you know, pay up front for the year. Yeah. And if you want to embed it in your website, which to me is more like that's what the World Herald would be doing, then it's the $60 a month because I basically am feeding my site on their traffic as well. And so this is happening across a lot of different places. And so there is software is fairly cheap to run, but that is a place where there is some additional cost to it.
I think, Wes, you were trying to get to if we would be running the ballot initiative for them, or if they would need to buy their own.
Or if like the zoo said, hey, we want to name an animal, and we could just maybe create our own little poll and share it with them to try to create interest that way. But then I was thinking, what are we going to have to do? And it looks like you have the more expensive plans on the screen share right now.
Yeah, we already have the unlimited plan.
Yeah, so I guess we could do that. And I don't know how many, you know, it said a certain number of polls before you get into the whatever cost. And so that's what I was kind of wondering about. And
what I would recommend, like, so basically comp you guys one for free. Yeah, so Roxanne's signed in right now. Like she can create infinite elections. It says 75 on the screen. It doesn't stop you if you get there. No one has gotten to 75 yet. So if you wanted to do a proof of concept for the zoo to show them just how easy it is, you could totally create that in here, share it with them. And then if they are wanting to run it and they want to have controls over it and see more, then like they'd create their own account.
Makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe we can just keep our eyes open for those kinds of things and share those types of links, set them up and share them. And then that would help spread the word.
That's a more convincing sale than like, have you heard about ranked choice voting? It's like, hey, you know, you're gonna name the new polar bear. Like, heard about it on the news. Like, how great would this be?
Yeah, I know OPPD, our electric company, just did a vote on some new Falcons that were born for their names on their site. So yeah.
I'm literally in
Yeah, I
discussions
thought I'd
about
like to
naming
get your-
trash compactors, like, you know,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Tad, let me offer this question or thought that I have, and I'll let you comment as to what you think the comeback to it is obviously in our political things, we have everybody gets to vote for a certain period of time. We shut off the voting, no more voting is allowed, and then we go through this process to determine who the winner is.
Mm-hmm.
Versus in a newspaper, you may be trying to sustain interest in the contest.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you keep over and over again, say we're running the contest, vote now, you know, and run it for like 4 weeks and then cut the voting off and then run the result one time? Or do you think it would be more effective to run it after 2 weeks to determine the top 4 candidates and run it for another 2 weeks and then determine the top 3 candidates, you know, let more people get in on it, that sort of thing? What are your thoughts?
I haven't seen enough of these run using RankedVote to say one way or the other what is an optimal way of sustaining interest. But like, one of the things that is cool about ranked choice voting, but has not been able to like translate into the broader messaging about, like, there's a natural sort of like TV-esque drama to it with the eliminations and the rounds. And so, you know, coming from the point of view, like for our political environments, it's like, we don't want it to be complicated. You can calculate the results right away. Like, we should know the results right away. But for a newspaper best of, you know, any of these sort of competition things, like, I think that the sort of rounds of voting, as well as the sort of results themselves, there could be something said for breaking those into chunks as a way of creating a hook and creating interest over time. You know, think of March
Game
Madness
shows.
brackets, right? You've got all the different rounds and the competitions and who's going to win, and people, you know, even though there's less people at the end, you probably have more engaged. And so, you know, I've given others advice. I wouldn't want the voting to go on more than 4 weeks, but I think you want it at least 2. And then in terms of the results, it's again, like, how do you want to do it? For people that are doing it on RankedVote, definitely advise them to flip on the private results feature so that you can hold the results as a hook. The default in RankedVote is to show that results page, again, because the emphasis is on education. But when the emphasis is on eyeballs, keeping those results close to the vest allows you to create some more interest in that moment.
I could see, for example, that you publish whatever your round 1 results after a week are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like that. Then, and I'm just talking out loud here, just thinking of it and how you would propose it to a newspaper to get them to sell and to do it.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you have some way to restrict people from to only voting once, or do you let them vote up to 3-4 times? Even with the ranking?
There are a few ways. So the short answer is that RankedVote is designed for exactly this use case of being used on the open web, where pranksters and all sorts of others, you know, kind of reside. But you don't want to create friction to voting, right? Like, this isn't used for the actual election. We don't need to create a paper trail here. This isn't subject to, you know, public records, archiving and retrieval laws. And so how do you get people to have a great experience with ranked choice voting, but also not have such like heinous results that people say like, oh, this doesn't work? So there are numerous things that are done that make it so that people can only vote from the app. If they vote multiple times, that deduplicate results feature can be used so that people who are, you know, voting from what looks like the same thing again and again, it only counts one of the votes and discards all the other ones that come after. And so it's definitely like, if you know a thing or two about computers, with some effort, you could probably vote 4 times. But like what we see is that there's now enough friction in place that people don't game it.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Thank you, Tad.
Yep.
This has been so great this evening, and we really appreciate you, Tad. And I think, Wes, did you have any last questions as we?
No specific questions. I was just going to thank you again, Tad. We're kind of up against the clock right now. We're getting close to that, but anyway, and anything we can learn about different ways to promote this and different software and that kind of thing, we really appreciate your taking time to share this with us, and the ways we can use it to try to promote what we're doing here. And you know, just thanks again for coming. And then you can either check out, or we're going to pass it over now to Kim. Are you out there? I have a little totem pole next to me. I don't know if you're out there, but at this point we usually, okay. Usually we pass it over. We'll pass it over to Kim to do a little spiel there, but Tad, you can stay or you can go, to quote the class.
I think I got a couple of kids to put down. I've been animated talking over here and probably keeping them up, but thank you for the invite. It was wonderful to talk to you all. And yeah, you can use it in your day-to-day business, use it for promoting, you know, Rank the Vote, and then just planting that idea of like, man, if you have an in at one of those newspapers, that's really the opportunity, you know, whether it's Nebraska, whether it's New York City or others, like to really start to get this idea into the mainstream. So we'll be at this for months and years, but it's going to happen, but takes our work and diligence to get it there.
All right. Well, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. We'll see you.
Dad.
Bye.
Okay, Kim, you want to talk about money and what we got, what we can get, how we can get it?
Sure. Roxanne, can you stop screen sharing real quick for me, please? Thank you. And then let's see if I can do this and not have it be super awkward. There we go. So for fundraising, I've got the QR code up there for our PayPal, and you can donate once or make it a recurring donation. But the things that we use those for, we use them for educational materials. When we printed out the flyers last year that we did, we passed out at the Husker games, signage and entry fees for events, which hopefully we will be able to start doing soon. You know, the pandemic has kind of put a damper on that. Ads on social media, website administration, a lot of back end stuff that we, you know, we pay for to help us get the word out, push it on social media, that kind of stuff. So we, you know, we've got some expenses, and it would be great if, you know, if you feel called to donate, we would really appreciate it, and we will use that money to spread the word for ranked choice voting. That's about all I've got. So please and thank you.
All right. Cindy, you want to mention the tag program, and then we can say goodbye?
Yes.
Well, and I know Roxanne has used it a lot too. I have an old version on my phone, and I seem to be having trouble getting back and forth. Has anyone else been having this trouble? Because I would like all of my shopping to go to Rank
Yes.
Nebraska if I could.
So I figured something out.
They have a new website for it.
Yes.
So the app is outdated, so you can remove the app.
Maybe we can just suggest, if people are watching it on the recording, that they can use tab or tags, so they, and then we can maybe talk about this when we get off, you think?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
tag,
together a greater good.com.
Yep.
Or is it .org?
All right. Well,
just Google Together a Greater Good and you'll get there.
Yeah. So basically they have a bunch of organizations that have partnered with Together a Greater Good to put forth a percentage of your shopping receipts. So all you're going to do is scan the receipts with eligible businesses, and they'll donate a portion of your sales price to a nonprofit of your choice.
Okay,
So-
great. All right. Should we stop the recording and do the after party?
Yeah. Please join
Okay.
us next month.
Okay.
The first Thursday of the month at 8 p.m.
All right. Thanks. And I do have some stuff I'd like to share with you guys.